Hello and welcome to our garden. We live in the county of Norfolk, midway between Norwich and Great Yarmouth. We grow vegetables in our back garden. We have 5 plots, all that are 16 feet long by 14 feet wide, and our soil is heavy clay. At the beginning of the year we made the decision to go over to no dig, trialling 2 of our beds with no dig last year. Now, we've got a busy day planned today. We have leeks to plant, we have onions to thin, sprouts to plant, kale to plant, and a little bit of general tidying up as we go around. So, let's get on with it. We've done the first row and we got 2 truckfuls. So that's the broad beans that we're ready to harvest today, and we've left the rest to grow on. Now, today also I want to have a look at the garlic actually, and harvest our remaining onions which were overwintered from last year. The majority of the tops are falling over now. They're a good size. Been really quite pleased with these. We've been picking onions from these 3 rows since beginning of May, but they are starting to come to term now, and I started some Calabrese plants off about 3 to 4 weeks ago. Which are now reaching a good size, and I want to put those in here for the preceding crop, ready for us to be able to harvest October time. I've pulled the first garlic bulb. I want to see what it was getting like, and beside it you can see exactly what our harvest would normally look like. That would be in our heavy clay soil. Quite a size difference. So I'm not going to harvest the rest today. I am going to leave them until the end of the month. That's about another week to 10 days. And then I think we can think about harvesting them. Our overwintering onion harvest, which will hopefully see us through until August, when the main crop onions will then hopefully be ready. They're of varying size, some gone quite large, there's not quite, but they were multi-sown. I'm quite happy with that. In fact, if they all came that size I'd be quite happy. So yeah, I'm going to keep those in the garage, and it won't take long for us to get through those. We do eat quite a few onions, but yeah, really pleased with that onion harvest. So as you can see, we have shelled the broad beans that I picked earlier, and we got a harvest of 4 pounds of broad beans. It's quite respectable. We had 2 rows in the ground, and that's what we got for our first harvest. We have harvested the onions, and this is what this strip of land now looks like. You can see there's very few weeds. There's 1 or 2 that clearly I have to just pick out, but in the main it's very clean. What am I going to do with this? Well, I'm just going to get the rake. I'm going to just level and fill any holes where the onions have been harvested, and pull any small weeds that still remain. And then we'll get on with planting the second crop. Here we are. Ground is prepped. And it took me all of 2 minutes. It's actually one of the things I find really great about no dig. There's not lots of weeding to do. Literally just raked over the compost just to roughly level it off from where there are indentations where I pulled the onions, and just pulled the odd weed where it was needed. Wasn't many. And yeah, you're then good to go, and this 4-foot strip is now ready to be replanted and to receive its second crop of the season. We put this compost mulch on this bed last September, and we planted the overwintering onions into the ground in October, and they've been growing there all year. June the 18th today, sorry, June the 19th today, not the 18th, the 19th, Saturday morning, and yeah, it's ready to receive a second crop and to grow on a second crop. So for us, we have 5 beds, and all the beds are 14 feet wide and 16 feet long. But on the garden plan, I break them all down into 4-foot beds. I did say earlier that Calabrese was going in here. It's actually not. What's going in here are our sprouts and our kale. So we're growing sprouts, a variety called Broody. We grew them last year and they were very good, I have to say. And we also grow dwarf curly kale and Cavolo. Now you may be wondering why they're in vending cups. Well, last year during lockdown, when we were all on furlough, and I was too, it was really difficult to get hold of plant pots. And so we happened to be in a local shop, and they had some vending cups. And we thought to ourselves, we could make use of those. I know they're plastic, but they don't disintegrate. This is the second year now that these have been used. And they're ideal for potting plants on. We just snip some holes in the bottom so that there's enough drainage. And as you can see, they look really healthy and are ready to go in the ground. So, we have our ground prepared, the plants are ready, so I'm going to dib the holes with my dibber and we'll get them planted in the ground. There we have it. This bed is once again planted up. And just to remind you, we've planted sprouts, variety Broody, dwarf green curly kale and Cavolo. So I've planted them quite deeply and quite firmly. They've all been watered in. And the only thing left for me to do now is to put the cover over them. You join us in the second part of this particular bed. We planted the sprouts and kale at the end there just a little while ago. Further down this bed we have some Calabrese, where the seed was planted back in February, and now they're starting to reach maturity. You can see got some quite nice heads now developing. a variety called Marathon, and I do like to grow the Marathon because it does grow really quickly and it does afford me 2 crops. Before we went over to no dig, we really struggled to get a second crop, which was one of the reasons why I chose Marathon, because it tends to grow quite quickly. It's on a marathon. We've had a couple of harvests off these, some of the ones that were sown earlier, and normally we would try to sow all of the seed together at the same time, but this year we just sowed enough to do 2 or 3, and then a week later the next 2 or 3, and it does seem to have worked because we're getting harvests at different times. They're spaced a bit differently. So what I've done here today, I've taken off, you can probably see, I've removed some of the bottom leaves. Is something I do periodically. They're starting to yellow, and as far as I'm aware they're no longer powering the growth for these, bearing in mind they're very, very near harvest now. And I think, for me, I think there's still enough leaf on there to let them grow on and produce their heads. We've also just had a harvest of beetroot. You can see the line of beetroot here. They were multi-sown, same time as the Calabres, back in February. And all we do is pull the larger ones. I'll show you here in the trug. They can be bigger than that. You can let them grow as large as you like. We tend to like them quite small. We like them roasted. There are also some quite large ones in there that are coming. And then next door to them are carrots. Now they've been covered for since they went in at the beginning of March. We've been having harvests of carrots now for last 3 weeks? Yeah, it must be, since the beginning of June. I like to pull them when they're small. I find them much sweeter and really tasty. Beside the Calabres and to the left the garlic is where I've grown our shallots. And they've been overwintered. I planted those back end of October last year. They're not going to be long before they're ready for a harvest. You can see there, swelled up nicely, divided. This particular one is a variety called Jamour. I've grown that for many years. A banana shallot, which we really enjoy cooking with. This year we've also tried a new variety for us, a variety called Griselle. When I read about it, it was reputed to be one of the best, and something that the French use quite a lot. Not that that makes any difference to me, but yeah, I was intrigued to see exactly what it does taste like. I've heard many good things about that particular variety. Here we are at the onion bed for this season. We sowed these onions from seed back in February. We've never really grown onions from seed before. We've always bought in sets. However, just over there in that bed there, where you can see some Charlotte potatoes, that's where the onions were last year, and we appear to have had white rot on our onions. Bearing in mind we have no history of that on this land, I've only come to the conclusion that it must have come in off the sets. I can't prove that, but that's what I believe. So this year we went all out to sow our own onion seed. As you can see, they're growing away nice and strongly now, and there comes the time when they need thinning. I have
thinned some of them. We had some quite nice spring onions, particularly the onion red baron. They seem to be maturing quicker than the Sturon or the Bedfordshire Champion or the Stuttgarter. They seem to be lagging behind a little bit, but I can see that they're of a decent size now. They were multi-sown. Could have had up to 8 or 10 seeds in there per cell, but that's good because it now means I'll get a nice crop of spring onions to use, and we use lots of spring onions here. Oh, look, there's a weed there. Let's have him out of there. Thank you. That's how easy it is with no dig. It's like a game. You spot the weeds and then pull. It helps keep on top of them. Now in this part of the bed here, I'm going to be growing leeks. As you can see, I've used mushroom compost here. This was delivered earlier in the year. I spread it on here. This bed was one of the worst we had for weeds. It was awful, and you can see how clean it is now. However, I do believe when I took delivery of this mushroom compost, I think it was still hot. And if you look at the onions in this row here, they've not grown half as well, and indeed we've lost some from the row. But they're not growing as strongly as these. And I planted spring onions here, and you know, we have one bunch which have come really good, the rest haven't done so well. And I think that's because this mushroom compost was too hot. The runner beans towards the back and the French beans here, well, they only went in 2 weeks ago. So I think that the mushroom compost is obviously cooling down now and is ready to grow decent plants. Anyway, my next job is to thin out these onions, and we'll come back again when I've just completed that task. So the onions have been thinned down to 4 or 5. What do we get out of it? Well, we get a whole load of nice spring onions to cook with. So yes, I find this method of multi-sowing really good. I've never done it before, but to have a bonus harvest of spring onions, and then to have the onions swell and become storing onions for the autumn and winter, fantastic. So we've reached the end of the day. It's been quite overcast today, with the odd spit and spot of rain. Nothing that deters us from getting on in the garden. Actually, it's been quite a relief because it's been quite hot over the last couple of weeks. So it's quite nice to have a cooler day in which to work. So we've achieved our objectives today, the things we wanted to do. We've planted 150 leeks today, and we managed to tidy up around the brassicas, taking all the old leaves off. Planted the sprouts and the kale. They're all in now, and yeah, got a harvest as well. Some nice potatoes. It's Father's Day tomorrow, just in case you don't know, and we have our children coming around and our grandchildren, so yeah, we're going to have a nice harvest, and it's due to rain quite hard tomorrow, hence why we've harvested the potatoes today. And all of these lovely spring onions, where we thinned the main crop onions. And of course, our beetroot for roasting for tomorrow. So it's been enjoyable today. Hope you've enjoyed watching. If you would, please subscribe. That's always most welcome. And don't forget to hit the bell so that you'll be notified when we upload another video. Take care and stay safe, and we'll see you back in the garden soon.